Milo bounces back and forth between using a muzzle and not using a muzzle, depending on the group we're putting him with and the temperaments of the dogs he meets. He's by no means an aggressive dog, but can get overwhelmed easily and make poor decisions, so we make sure we play it safe until we're 100% confident with the individual dog he's around. This method has allowed him to meet more dogs and have more positive interactions than he's been able to in a very long time. I'll talk about this in detail on the podcast tomorrow. Right.
Boom.
So it was just kind of, it was spark. I was watching him socialize, right? And I was watching him like play. Like he was, he had the muzzle on and he's like having fun. You know what I mean? Like he's going and like sniffing and hanging out and like, butts wiggling and stuff like that. And like every now and then he would do this little, because we had him with a totally new group yesterday, right? It was like rambunctious puppies, right?
Yeah.
Like we got this freaking Vizsla puppy in right now,
boy.
other like pointer puppy, this little guy that's all freaking crazy and fast and stuff like that. And I had him out with like the wild group, right?
High
and
energy.
Like every now and then, like they'd be playing and running and they'd come barreling past him, like crashing them, right? And he'd like let out this little right, and it, like he'd like growl and jump to the side for a second. It's like no fucking big deal. You know what I mean? It's like he's fine, right? He didn't do anything wrong. The other dogs don't give a shit about it, right?
Yeah.
But like sometimes as trainers, we can feel this pressure put on us, whether it's just the pressure from like what we think the dog should be able to accomplish. If this dog should be at X point by now, right? Or this pressure of like the owner is expecting this dog to be just perfect with other dogs by the end of this or whatever, right? And like we could feel this pressure of like, oh, but like, is he going to be off of the muzzles? You know what I mean? And it's and it's a question, and it's like, I clarify, like, I understand why owners ask this question, but it's like sometimes we'll we'll see the dog is enjoying themselves, having a good time. We're putting in place safety protocols. We're using the muzzle. Maybe we're even using the muzzle more than we probably even need to, right? And it's like we'll send that video over because the dog's making progress, and they'll be like, oh, well, have you done it off muzzle yet? And it's like...
That's what you're worried about.
No. And again, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? I truly get it. Like, we want our dog to continue to progress. And for... To in their credit, right, we've been kind of brainwashed through things that are posted on social media and things that people tell you and stuff like that, that if you need to use a muzzle, there's something still wrong with the dog, right? But because we continue to use the muzzle with this dog, we've been able to overcome those hurdles of when he does get overwhelmed with things in a super non-confrontational way where both the other dogs, ourselves, can really, truly see that some of those behaviors there's nothing to be concerned about yet, right? Yeah. That time that those puppies come barreling past him and crash into him and he lets out a little growl or kind of runs over and shows his teeth a little bit or something like that. Because we've put him in so many of those situations and he's been able to be in that situation and be like, wait a minute, I don't need to control this situation because nothing that bad is happening. Nothing's happening to me. My owners aren't jumping in right away, or this trainer isn't jumping in right away and grabbing me because like they're scared of the behavior that I'm exhibiting and stuff like that. And I'm able to work through and process those emotions. His confidence has been able to shoot up so freaking much with these dogs, right? And I really want people to start looking at, and this is even like, this is even something that I'm working on with myself, right? I want people to start being okay with when you have that dog that has issues with other dogs, seeing the muzzle as more of a positive, right? This is the same exact thing as we had a client in from Colorado recently, right? And we posted the before and afters of him learning to play and socialize with the other dogs and stuff like that. And the owner was very hung up on the muzzle still, right? She was like, oh, but like, I really want him to play without the muzzle. It's like, but like, before this, he wasn't able to play at all. He wasn't able to interact with other dogs at all, right? And now we have this way where maybe he's a little bit restricted because he has it on, but he could continuously be put in these situations that were challenging for him and that he couldn't be in before, and he could learn to be comfortable in that environment, and you could learn over time to trust him more. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's all because of the muzzle, right? And I want to start looking at the muzzle no different than we look at some of our other training tools. Because even myself, again, I said I'm kind of working on this a little bit. I've even separated muzzle from like our e-collars or our treats or things like that. You know what I mean? It's like a separate training tool to us because we look at it as much more of a short-term thing than those things, right? E-collars, like when your dog goes home from training, right? If you're doing training with us, because we do e-collar training, right? we tell everybody the e-collar you're going to use forever. I use them with my dogs, right?
Yeah.
Like if I go, somewhere that I'm going to need to do training, I implement that e-collar with them. And over time, maybe they had a little bit of a negative association with the e-collar initially because it's like, it's this tool that like is, creates rules and boundaries. It means we're doing training and sometimes it's not always fun and this and that. But over time, the dog starts to get excited when the e-collar comes out, right? Classical conditioning takes place and it's like e-collar comes out. Man, now that the training's done, we get to go do something fun.
Yeah.
Right? E-collar comes out, we get to go to the park. We get to go run and chase the ball. We get to go to grandma's house, right? We get to go fucking, eat a bunch of treats in a training session, things like that. The muzzle can start to turn into that as well with a lot of these dogs, right? And I have a client that's the perfect example of this that I'll talk about in a minute, right? But the muzzle can turn into this. Yes, initially the dog isn't going to like the muzzle. Why the hell is this thing over my face, right? That's holding me back from maybe biting this other dog or doing something else that I want to do. And, it's restrictive and I don't like it. But as these owners use the muzzle more at home and the dog starts to see it as meaning more freedom, right? The muzzle means more freedom. The muzzle means I get to go to the dog beach. The muzzle means I get to go play with the neighbor's dog. The muzzle means I get to go to this daycare and socialize, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It starts to create the same positive association, right? So I want to start looking at these muzzles as more of a positive and a long-term solution to some of the problems that you're having, because if we're in a position where we're so mentally like, I need to get off of this muzzle, that's where bad things happen, right? We've made a post before. One of our most popular little clips we posted was one where I was talking about using the muzzle. You should use it until it literally feels so fucking stupid that you're using it that you start to take it off then at that point, right?
100%,
and that takes a long time for some dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And for some dogs, the muzzle may be the way that you socialize them forever. I'm not talking about Milo in this case, obviously, but a more serious dog, maybe every time you socialize the dog, you use a muzzle with them, right? And they can make friends and enjoy themselves. And we post videos all the time of dogs playing with the muzzle on and having a good time. And the dog is not thinking about it like you're thinking about it at that point. It's just the thing that allows them to go and be a part of things.
Yeah.
Catch my breath. You got anything to add to that?
No, I think the biggest takeaway from all that really was the positive association that could be, impacted on the muzzle. I do think a lot of people think it's always a negative thing. It's a negative connotation, like, oh, they're being restricted and oh, they're going to hate it. But yeah, like if you have a dog that could never do anything and now you're able to at least let them go play. Yeah. Like I think that's a huge win for them, and I think it maybe it's because a lot of people, the only time they use muzzles maybe is at the vet or something like that. Sure. Like, I guess that's where you could get like a negative, like, imprint on it, for a dog. I guess kind of the only time we've ever had to muzzle Bender is at the vet, so he's kind of like weird about it. But so that's why we need to get a muzzle from you, by the way, so we can train him on it a little bit more. But I think otherwise, like when we were like in daycares, back in the day when I was with you, like a lot of dogs didn't really care that they had the muzzle on because they were like, hey, I get to go like have fun today,
Yeah, and if you look at it, right, let's say we're taking a dog, right, that up until this point has never been able to socialize successfully with other dogs, right? Like you couldn't even get him around another dog, right? Yeah. And let's say we get them to a place where they couldn't be around dogs ever, right? Or maybe could be around like one or two dogs to we can socialize the dog 100% of the time with the muzzle on. They can meet a new dog every week. They can meet a new dog once a month, whatever it is, right? And have a good time and play, but they never progress from that to off of the muzzle for whatever reason, whether it's because of the dog's limitations, the owner's limitations, the owner's comfort level, whatever it may be. Yeah. But they get to that place where they can socialize and play with the muzzle on. That's still a net positive. We've moved in the right direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And as you do that more and more, that's going to continue to progress the dog in that situation. Dogs are going to become less novel. Yeah. If your dog's having reactivity on the walk, right, that reactivity is going to decrease because they're going to be starting to see dogs a little bit differently, right, because they're not being withheld from them all the time, right? They're able to enjoy themselves more. It will become more of a positive association, et cetera, right? So I want people to be okay. We get back to the baby steps and looking at, hey, these are the incremental steps of progress that we want to start to see with our dog. That is a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Other point I was going to say, you mentioned positive association, right? And biggest takeaway being, right, over time, it will start becoming a positive thing to the dog. I think the other thing with muzzles, too, is some people get so hung up on the dog has to have a positive association with the muzzle before we start using the muzzle.
That's
right?
true, yeah.
So they get so hung up on, well, the dog hates the muzzle and isn't playing right now, right? It's like, well, this is the first week they've ever needed to use one in their life. Like, of course they're not going to like it. No different than the e-collar, right? Some people get so hung up on the dog should have only a positive association with the e-collar, right? I'll tell you, Deli, my one dog downstairs, right? She fucking hated the e-collar for the first, like, month that we used one with her.
Yeah.
Right? Because, again, it meant rules. It meant you're probably going to get corrected for something because you're acting up, right? And doing things that you shouldn't do, right?
100%.
But, again, as we got past all those things, that's where the positive association started to get created, and it's a more organic positive association, right? It's more organic because it's not forced of like, I'm bribing you and begging you to like this thing right now. It's just that she started realizing on her own, again, that when that thing comes out, when it goes on her, it means we're doing fun shit.
Yeah.
Right. And that is a way more organic thing than the dog absolutely needing to be pumped with treats.
Yeah.
Right. In order to like that tool. And again, this is nothing against people that use treats in training. It's just, again, the general philosophy of how the positive association is created in the first place.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You know, that's one thing that was really kind of rolling through my head yesterday, and something that I think a lot of trainers and a lot of owners struggle with, right? A lot of issues that trainers will experience come from feeling the need to fade that muzzle out too fast. And a lot of the things that hold owners back from seeing a lot of the success they want to see with their dogs is either not wanting to use the muzzle in the first place or trying to fade that muzzle out too fast. Right?
Yeah.